Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Energy Speaks Back, powered by B2B Energy. My name is Paul Webb. I'm the founder of B2B Energy, and I'm your host. And each week, I bring to you energy experts from around the world. Welcome, energy enthusiasts, to episode 170. Our purpose, as always, is to provide a good understanding of energy management knowledge from around the world, which is available today for us to deliver savings that impact on our planet. This is part 2 of our special double-header episodes, where I sit down with the brilliant team of 21 Engineering. There are innovators who have redefined how buildings and people interact through smart technologies, renewable energy, and lifelong learning. We delve deep into the origins, their ethos, and the cutting-edge innovation they are deploying, from smart sockets and solar installations to heat pumps and advanced monitoring, all aligned with a sustainable future. Please engage with your comments and don't forget to take part in the poll after the episode. Let's continue the conversation. Let's keep driving positive change in our industry. So without any further ado, let us meet the founder of 21 Engineering and the driving force behind this, Phil Draper.
Good afternoon, Phil. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Paul. I'm very well, thank you. Welcome to Makes It Better House.
Amazing. And I'll be honest, we've actually done a walk around and everything, haven't we? And this is...
Hopefully it's inspired you.
It had. Do you know, it inspired me the first day I come here before, and it was just a building site. And you was telling me about all these different things you were going to do. And I was sort of like, in the back of my mind, I was smiling, if you know what I mean. I think, right, he's got a lot on here. But now I've come today, I thought, what am I going to come into? But you've done it. I think you're doing it. It's amazing.
It's not where I want it to be.
Yeah.
And I think terminology that we bring into the industry, we don't use enough, is continuous improvement.
Yeah.
I want this to always be my trial bed for technology that comes out. So anytime someone speaks to me, is can I put it in here now? Can I look at it myself? Can I get my guys to look at it?
Yeah.
And really make it so it is there and it allows other people to believe what can be done.
Yeah. And I like when you look at some of the stuff, you still got the cables hanging there as if it's still on trial, it's still testing it. You know, I think that's really impressive to know that it's ongoing, continuous.
Yeah. So we're not there to have a building this size that's got its own BMS system.
Yeah.
To have 11 sub-meters, to have the smart lighting, the smart hot water cylinder, everything we've got the smart actuators going for that way. So we're not there yet, and I want to try and go for that way. But a few weeks ago, with the solar on the roof that you've already seen, I got our T-level work experience guy to actually start running the numbers. So one of these jobs every week when he's here, he actually updates a number off the system, pulls it all down off of our supplier, off the solar system, off right that way. And we've got all our EMPIs done. And it seems a bit over the top for a building this size that to have so many EMPIs, but we can determine exactly what's being used where precisely as any building in London would want to do. It doesn't matter where it is.
And I like the way the team is being trained from the beginning as well.
Well, they've got a working place.
Yeah.
They can understand and ask whatever questions they want and go for that sort of situation.
Yeah.
You might have touched on upstairs, but that whiteboard is almost rubbed out. The amount of times we go through it and draw on that way, go on for it, the colour pens go for that way.
Yeah.
And we always try, obviously it's more so when I'm here because I'm a bit more outgoing, let's go for that way as it sits.
Really? I would have never noticed.
I hide it well. I do hide it very well. I thank you for praising that one, and I'll use that one. But I'll challenge them. If something comes up that I think they might not know, and that could be for anyone actually in the team, from Julian, Varner, Manuel, Michael, when we have Mason here, Corbin might be, whoever it is, and there's something I think is relevant, stop guys, we'll have a bit of training.
Yeah.
We're all going to talk about it. Do you understand what this might mean? How does it mean to the client? What does it mean for that way? And actually we had a girl quite possibly joining as an apprentice she lives in Kent. She came up a few weeks ago. And actually what do you think it could be? And we started going for Fleming's left-hand rule, Fleming's right-hand rule, and going for basic principles of what they're learning in schools actually can be applied to a real-life job in that way.
That's powerful.
It is, and it is those small bits and pieces.
So Phil, we met 2015. I can't remember where we met. I know how we met. And I think I presented to you the software we were developing for energy management at the time. I remember it was a very tough presentation. I think I ended up.
Yeah?
Sorry,
we didn't get to work with you.
The software worked, but we never got the conversation finished. I think I went away with too many notes of what I needed to do. But yeah, it was 2015 we met. We've had a really great journey with some great clients we've looked at, and we've actually done projects together, which I'm really sort of proud of those projects. So I think I know you. We've actually been to some football matches as well, so we won't talk about them as such. But
no, the result was really bad.
We had a bad result. Well, we had a good result. You had a bad result. But yeah, so we know each other socially as well. So I know a lot about you. But for the benefit of the people hopefully watching today, yes, can you give us a story about your background and, more importantly, your origin story? What brought you into the energy management world, as I see it?
So I'll start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So
if you want to.
I'm not supposed to be here today in terms of energy management.
Right.
So actually, when I left school in the late 90s, I decided to do an apprenticeship, and I trained originally as a toolmaker, lathes, mills, the whole lot, and it's something that technically I was very, very good at. However, it wasn't long that trying to stand behind a mill or a lathe all day, it wasn't for me. And honestly, and actually at that point, this is a place in Chelmsford, E2V is called now.
I know the place. I did go to try and get an apprenticeship there.
I was only the best one to get it go for that way. So I joined in September 98 it was. 2 years actually in engineering qualification, that and doing like the YTS scheme as it was in that sort of way. But by the time I got to early 2000s, year actually in the training workshop, and a better way, the supervisor of the workshop pulled me in and said, at the age of 18, you're the worst apprentice we've ever had.
Oh, I remember you telling me this story.
Yeah. And at that point then was absolutely gutting, going off that way. I then applying for all these other jobs, actually doing machining, because 18 years old, you don't think about going to a different career path.
Yeah.
My saving grace for where I am now, they couldn't sack me. So because actually they had a space actually in facilities management, the facilities team picked me up, moved me over.
Right.
And effectively within a few weeks, when they said to me, Phil, you work hard and show commitment, you could do overtime, and I thought I could earn some more money, and that's it. I've not looked back since.
Right.
Going for that way. So I ended up, after I finished my engineering 2-year course, then put me on a 3-year electrical installation course. I'm a trained electrician, going for that way. Then put me on an ONC in electronics, and then actually I then done a HNC in electrical power. So whenever anyone talks to me, they assume my qualification background is mechanical, but actually everything I've done in educational purposes is all electrical. But 90% of what I do today is all is mechanical bias, talking that sort of stuff, going for that way. So I left. Well, intermediate aspect, by the time I got to 21, 22, they'd moved me off to tools.
Right. And
actually they'd moved me into the factory services engineer as a role. I'm the guy then that's trying to technically coordinate how E2V was making sure it was running by having the services the production needed. Hydrogen, ammonia, nitrogen, oxygen, N2, frozen N2. We had 11 substations, 11 kV substations. I was in actually doing the energy recharging, moving it all around, that sort of bits and pieces. And I loved it. It was a challenge. Every day was hard work. Every day was learning something new. Actually at one point I was a trained BA user to actually run into areas to go and rescue people, going for that way. When did I do that? Sort of 2003. Actually had to go up to Yarmouth and actually go through the whole lot with a BA jacket on, that sort of situation. Every day was just different. I got to the point of going, I can't stay here. 10 years, I could have stayed there for the rest of my life, and all my old colleagues is there, and they're going for that way. I could have earned some good money, progressed up the chain a little bit, but I'm bored. Done it now. I want to go somewhere else. I then went for work for a company called EP&T, Australian metering firm.
Yeah.
Employee number 2 in the UK, employee number 1 was a salesman. At the age of 27, I'm effectively leading all of their technical tenders, reviews, client engagements to win the first lot of work for EP&T. And our first client was British Land.
Right.
And that was all effectively one off the back of my technical assurances that I had with people like Arabs who were doing the tender reviews and all the British Land interviews, were showing what we could and couldn't do actually around the metering system that way.
And that's Rob Fisher?
No. So Rob Fisher obviously was Broadgate Estates that way. So he was on the interview tendering point to make sure what we was going with. A guy called Kyle Evans sat there and a few other bits and pieces actually, and Justin Snoxall. These are the guys asking of the system that we had, could we do it? Yeah. So don't get me wrong, I wasn't super au fait with the EP&T system now. But I'm the one that would be picked up and, right, you've designed this system, how's it going to work? Yeah. Where's this going to go? How's it going to work? And I'm the one that to sit there and give that assurances to a client like British Land that our system was working. That first system we put into York House in 2008, 2009 saved 35% within 3 months at the building energy through the management process, going for that way. So as much as I've done some energy management and conscientious energy of E2V, it was that jumping at EP&T that actually really changed it over. Yeah. I've got too many E's in my career path, going for that way. And it's that thing got me going. At that point, then part of my role was like to sit opposite the technical services manager and go, I've seen this happen, why has it happened? Yeah. They'll go for that way. But I said, why don't we try and change this? Why don't you try and do this? We'll go for that way. So really building on my building services knowledge I have of E2V to how I'm engaging with clients.
Yeah.
So one point actually with a building called Roadmaker Place, British Land was their first real sustainable building going for that way, BREEAM excellent, CHP in there, green roofs, the whole lot. And we put the EP&T system in there, got the data working, and I'm challenging everything that's being done as the building's being finished. Mm-hmm. Like a pretty, the modern soft landings approach, what's going on, how does it all work, that sort of approach. And to the point they got Arabs back, British Land called it Arabs back, because there's so many questions that couldn't be answered locally. And I'm the guy that's supposed to sit on the back edge of it, keeping quiet, because I'm not British Land, I'm just this lowly metering guy. I'm the one asking all the questions. What's going on? Why is that? I walked out there and the guy from British Land or Broadgate Estates as it was in, that's your job. I was like, you're joking. Right. I'm a 20-year-old guy, you employ me. 3 or 4 months later, took around that way. It's when I had my first proper interview going for that way with Rob Fisher at the time. I never really had a conversation with him. And this was for the senior engineering role over at Regent's Place. And I sit there, go over the questions. Rob's relatively technical going for that way.
Very technical. He used to work for Trend.
It is, at the first point.
He left Trend just as I started, basically.
Yeah,
and he was my client.
Yes, he was, and he's very hard to deal with.
Oh.
Yeah. So Rob still does work for me now, going for that way. And he sit there, Phil, technically you could run these buildings, there's no problem there. But you've never been a manager. So I'm sorry, Phil, we can't really progress this any further. I said, hang about, Rob. I said, when I'm 18, 19, I was running a scout group. They said, I can sit there at the age of 19 and get respect out of 10-year-olds. I should be right with adults, shouldn't I? And effectively, that is what got me the job.
So you told him that you need to reassess the process. Yeah.
Or reassess me.
Yeah.
Don't look at what my CV says in that way. Look beyond the bit at the bottom where it says about being a scout leader. Going for that way. And I was only doing it for sort of 2 years.
Sometimes that's the approach you put into the buildings. Don't look at the specification, what it says. Look at it, actually what it is doing.
Yeah, and how it does work. Yeah. And that bit there, and if I hadn't have taken that, my own time when I was that age, because I had got so much out of scouting, and I hadn't have decided to be a scout leader at an early age, unfortunately I said I had to stop due to going on to shift work, I wouldn't have got my job with British Land.
Right.
And that's one thing, every time, and I'm back involved with scouts now, I mention this to the scouts as going, you might want to think about what else this could mean to you. You staying in scouting, how much it could affect your life later down the road in that way, because it really affected mine for that way. So 2011, I joined British Land, taking over the Regent's Place complex, sort of 2 million square foot, learning service charges, learning everything else, going for that way, M&E contracts, whole new world as it's at, but ultimately it's just M&E.
Yeah.
And there's no point thinking about it.
Do you ever think that you're out of your comfort zone at any time, or you feel you're out of your comfort zone but you can you're going to get through there?
Are you asking a 40 plus year old Phil, or you're asking a 29-year-old?
Okay, let's ask the 29-year-old.
I was bricking myself. I'd never done it.
Yeah.
I never, until I started.
So you're confident enough to know that you can get through. You wasn't.
No, not at all.
Right.
I'd grown up with the same group of people You know, my whole apprenticeship was dealing with 15 people.
Yeah.
I had loads of clients out actually the fields, but my day-to-day point of dealing with, I had my line manager, and these are all the team that stayed there throughout the whole of my point. You know, so even when I became the factory services engineer, the people that I'm supposed to be looking after, I didn't tell them what to do. They were still telling me what to do because I was still their apprentice.
Yeah.
But because I had a bit of a technical mind on me, and they didn't want the job ultimately to go out that way. They're happy where they were. Is why I got sort of up the chain. You know, and there's a guy called Sean McNally now who I still have a good relationship with, going for that way. You know, and these are people that I owe my technical ability to, because these are the ones that train me. And I've got a list, as I said, there's 10, 15 guys there that didn't just teach me technically, they gave me a character.
Yeah.
And that's almost one of the key things of how they I'm going to say guided the apprentice. You know what I mean? It wasn't so much guy with an arm around the shoulder. There was other ways they made sure that you could cope in life.
Yeah.
Let's go for that way. A little bit Mickey taken, a little worse.
Banter.
Yeah.
Is that where you get your banter from? Because you're quite a banter type person, aren't you?
I don't know, probably. Again, you always wish you could record yourself at different stages in your life and see how much you've changed.
Yeah.
Going for that way. My personality has really grown in the last 10, 11 years, going for that way of believing actually that where I can sit in the industry and being go down to, but that ultimately came from people trusting me, not so much me trusting myself.
But you're confident in what you're saying because you know it's right. You know the detail of it and your experience probably that comes through. What
I say today is I think it's right for today, but I might say something different tomorrow.
Right.
Because I'm learning.
Right.
So the bits and pieces, something else might change, new technology, something else do a different way. So the heat pump project I done nearly 11 years ago, there's bits and pieces, snippets of that I refer back to, but if I went back now and done it, I'd tell you it was wrong. I wouldn't have done it that way. I'd change it. I'd do it a different methodology.
You're learning. It's continuous learning, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's part of the issue actually in the industry where people don't do that. They're still afraid to almost criticise themselves or their own previous work to go, actually, we could do it better. Yeah. You know, technology's helped that how I can make it better, but there's still different ways that I would have gone, actually, now what I know now, actually, if we would have done this or changed this or put that, allowed this or gone for that way, but for then it was right, but for today it's not.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I'm quite comfortable with, is that knowing what I know now and guiding my clients to be the best they can be so that way, but they almost know that actually in 6 months there's something else better. I'm not going to sit here and try and protect what I emailed them 6 months ago. I said to them 6 months ago, I know something more now. Let's make it better.
When you walk into last Friday, I think it was, we walked in to a new build. It was so new that you didn't know where it was. I had to help you I had to send you the location.
That's old age, you couldn't find it, yeah.
Well, the city has changed so much, isn't it? We was at Moore Place and it was like, where is it? It's right in the middle. Anyway, where I'm going with this conversation is that you went to a new building. What is the first thing that you're doing in your mind? So when I go into a new build, I'm sort of juggling the things in my head of where I need to be and what I do. What do you do? Is there anything that you do that's different, do you think?
I try and understand the building within an hour.
Right.
And after that hour, I can tell you any answer you want to know about that building.
Really?
If I could tell you any pathway, I reckon I could do a net zero design in 4 hours in most building anywhere in the UK.
That's impressive.
To almost to the point actually within 10 grand how much it's going to cost you.
Wow. What's the stepping stones that you would take? Can you share those?
For what goes to my head to get there?
No.
I don't even know. No, for me, having the pathway into metering and the influence that's done actually in the buildings that I operate with now, metering is always the first.
Yeah. That
is by far, but it's not just putting the meter in, it's the process, the evaluation, understanding.
Yeah.
That's what makes a difference. So actually I had a report come through my desk yesterday for a building that I won't say which one it is, around actually peak loads. Within half an hour, I could prove the report was wrong by others by looking at the metering data, and I knocked off 30% of the peak capacity. Confidently, going for that way. And that says it all in, right, okay, what can metering do towards a net zero pathway? But because I've been involved with these buildings and I've had, 15-minute profiles from loads and loads of systems across a number of different types of buildings. But what you sort of do is go, right, what type of buildings are this? Oh, right, okay, it's water cooled chillers, it's boilers, oh, they're here, right, okay. And all you end up doing is, my way of putting it is, you're building Lego.
Yeah.
But what pieces of Legos have I got to get where it needs to go?
Yeah, it's a Lego.
I'm almost going old-fashioned Lego where you only have just like 5 different shapes.
Yeah.
Not like now.
Not now when you get the kit and then you have to remake it.
Yeah, make it Optimus Prime. But yeah,
the white bits and the green bits. Yeah.
So you go for that way. So that's what I end up doing, is working out how does it sort of sit. And I spend so much of my time listening more around. I should take more time listening to people's names. Probably could be a really good start. But actually understanding what people say about technology, equipment, the pros, the cons. Then when I go and look at stuff, I can understand. I've sort of taken that a little bit out of my mind and go, right, okay, I've got to apply that bit of knowledge I've got to that system, and that bit to that bit, pull a bit out of there, right, okay, right, I've now got, right, that's how it works, right, that's where we've got to start, that's how it all sits. But again...
And do you have your go-to people you go to say, what's your thoughts on it?
I don't generally go to many people about what's your thoughts on it, going for that way. There's, I've got a few key suppliers, manufacturers that I'll go to.
So you go back to the manufacturer
for the relationships, going for that way, because I feel it should be 2 ways for that way. But I won't sit there and commit to any one manufacturer. I won't commit to any one supplier, because that then takes away my independence.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the key things that I'm in this now for the right reasons, not because someone's giving me work when I've got to go for that way, or that sort of situation. Is trying to get. Yeah. If people do a good job for me, I'll more likely go to them first, but I'll never guarantee anyone work through me.
No, because you maintain that independence.
Yeah, and that's key.
When you go into a building and there's possibly no meters, are we still seeing that where we've got sites now that haven't got many meters? Because meters are becoming the common.
They are, but they're not on a platform.
Yeah. We looked at a building, didn't we, last week that wasn't on a platform.
Yeah.
They'd never be on a platform because you couldn't connect them, because you know. The second building we looked at, but so we are finding buildings that have got meters in, but are a bit dumb meter really, aren't they? They're just for taking readings. Yeah,
for charging, for pounds and pence, not for a kilowatt.
Yeah,
that's what those meters are there for. Yeah, it's actually so the landlord can make sure they're not paying more than they should do. And
then, are we finding buildings that haven't got anything in them now, or is that a thing of the past?
No. There's still places that have got a bit of metering. There's some that actually have got a Part L level metering. But then obviously, to get for today's standards, you need a bit more than that.
Yeah, it's funny. I go into buildings and they've got multiple meters, but none of them communicate. Or
that's very
they're just there to tick the box, aren't they?
Very, very common.
Yeah.
Or all we end up doing is using the connected system just to get that manual meter read at the end of the month to save a guy walking around.
Yeah.
Nothing else is done between it.
That particular building we looked at, and I'll keep referring back to it, there he was with an automated readout, but he was still doing manual reads.
Because he doesn't trust the data.
Yeah. Or someone didn't trust it within the organisation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the shame bit, but that's where you should be able to start. But a lot of these times it doesn't take much to make it better.
Yeah.
So actually we've got a job we've got to do in Manchester, got the order yesterday, to actually just take it off the BMS and put in a gateway that we can record, look at and do what we want to do with the data.
Yeah.
Just so it can be usable.
Yeah. We're on this journey of net zero, and people are all talking about the net zero path. What's your thoughts on the pathway? We've got time to get to that pathway. Should organisations, which I'm finding this knee-jerk approach, we need it now, or do you feel there's a journey, or is it balance?
You've got a carrot and a stick. So a lot of times these people are trying to do it the right way with a carrot, but they've got a stick because the EPC or the lease, all those bits and pieces, and all of a sudden then they've got to try and react.
The legislation started to bubble up
to push it through.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of times that's what's sort of driving that need to jump on there quickly. But that's when at some point then what I then do is don't just focus actually on putting a heat pump in. Right, well, let's go back. Let's do a bit of evaluation. Let's do that one first. Go for that way. So sometimes it's trying to get clients to look far enough in advance. So everyone should be looking now at their EPCs between 7 and 8 years within the 10.
Yeah.
To start giving enough time to work out what you've got to do, to build up the budget, to take the plan where it's going through, to get where it's sat in that way. A good metering system, I only need 6 months. Within 6 months, I can get that building fine-tuned.
Yeah.
To at least get to the point I know what I've got to do as part of the bigger project. So to save all the money, to make the heat pump half the size, a quarter of the size, whatever it comes down to it. So that initial investment for a metering system, and it could just be 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand, it depends on the size of the building, could end up saving 100 or 200,000 pounds of the heat pump project. Let alone all the other benefits you're going to get out of it.
Yeah. Do you think the cost to get to net zero, well, if you wanted to get to net zero tomorrow, the cost of that could be quite expensive. But if we're taking more baby steps and the right approach,
it's not going to cost you much at all.
No.
Because the reason why I say that, obviously things do cost money, but things also fail.
Yeah.
So knowing with the guidance like the CIBSE Guide M, you evaluate performance, reliability, obsolescence and energy now, then Guide M, when you go to replace your primary systems, the additional money to spend on getting it to a net zero technology isn't much more. So you're already got a plan for a lift, what lift anyway, you already got a plan for this, you already got a plan for that. So it doesn't have to cost you much more at all. And lucky I've got a proven record with the clients I've done net zero designs for operation. And actually we're then seeing these projects, these are heat pump projects that are saving 20% of the operational costs. Not just big kilowatt savings, but everyone's perception for a heat pump, it's going to cost you more to run. We're not having any of that.
Yeah.
So we're walking away with £25,000, £30,000, £40,000 cost saving on operating a building with a heat pump. So if you might spend 300 grand, 400 grand extra, but you get 50 grand a year savings, a 4 year return on investment to go net zero is pretty good.
Very good. Very good. There's vehicles that organisations can use, like legislational vehicles. There's other vehicles like ISO 50001, and you're a great believer in ISO 50001, aren't you?
Yep, I love ISO 50001. It's that, the point, the continuous improvement, identification, the management process, the engagement, making people more accountable as it works. That really is where it sits. People should be doing it anyway.
But then I don't think they are.
I agree.
There's a learning curve there. It's quite difficult. We had an organisation we was talking to about it, and they just shutters wasn't there, and walls, and they just didn't get it. What do you think, us in our sort of capacity, what we got to do to make that easier going forward?
So one of the perceptions of ISO, any ISO, is it needs to be lots and lots and lots of paperwork. You could probably write down the whole ISO 50001 process on no more than 20 pages.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden making an ISO affordable, going for that way, changes it. Because ISO doesn't tell you you've got to have all those. It says you should have an auditing process. And then you might only have to say, I should audit it once a year. And if that's enough for the size of the organisation, that's how much it works.
Yeah.
I think you need to have a corrective action programme. We should operate with an Excel spreadsheet recording all of our data and it should list them all. That's your corrective action programme and that's your spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be overly complicated. It needs to be reflective of the size of the organisation and the risk associated with the company, not huge ones.
That's a good point, because when I've been audited on ESOS, and it wasn't until we got audited, we made a massive journey of doing the first phase of it. It was tough. When we got audited, a lot of our audits were, well, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. It's like, wow, we were failing, even though we put all this effort into doing that. But what I then learned is must have, could have, should have, all within the wording. And that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Shall, then we shall do that. Must or could, we don't necessarily have to put the coulds in there, do we? So it's just understanding that document and then replicating that for the organisation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's also helped me is when I done the British Land one originally for Broadgate Estates one for their head office back in 2017, we actually got the ISO 50001 signed off with only 2 weeks worth of data. That's all we had.
Yeah.
Because actually I knew the building, I knew the process, I knew the data. So when we got audited, and originally they come back and said you can't have this, but I showed them the process. So we only had 2 weeks worth of data, but the methodology we've been operating with is what we've been using for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And they understand the data, what we've been doing for the last 10 years. So they could, okay, you should really have more than that, but you can actually determine what your baseline is, you can determine this, you can determine that, go for that way. So there's a lot of misperceptions on how you should be doing an ISO, but it should actually be written in the context of the organisation and the risk involved.
Yeah. So we've got ESOS and we've got ISO 50001. Organisations have got their choice, haven't they? What would you...
ISO 50001.
Every time?
Everyone.
Yeah.
There's not a point I'd ever say no to.
And why would you do that?
For the continuous conversation. I know the action plans have now come in,
Yeah.
but it's not enough.
No, because those action plans are pretty much words, aren't they?
Yep. You've got the right...
We don't know what's coming around the corner.
Obviously, the new methodology around ESOS is more aligned to trying to get an ISO point in there. And obviously, it's probably now more encouraging for people to try and take the ISO route rather than having to do the action plan bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe you'd probably actually get a 1 year payback on doing an ISO 50001 over doing an ESOS process over 4 years.
Yeah. I like this Columbo interviewing style, so I'm going to go back now, not right back to the beginning. We've learnt about the 29-year-old and the stresses and pains of that. Let's bring it forward to today. What are your challenges today?
People.
In what way?
That's it. It's the only challenge here is people.
Right.
Culture, commitment, drive.
Do you feel we've got more of that though? There's a lot more drive and the culture's changed for doing energy management?
No, it's not just that though. Is you to try and get the young people, the new people into it.
Yeah.
That's the hardest bit, is trying to get them to try and consider this route as where it's at. You know, people don't generally want to move from a maintenance way or that sort of way, and you know, a lot of times the money in energy management is probably not as much as you could do if you took a BMS sentient.
Always like the correlation, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So to try and get the right people here, and us as a business, you know, we shouldn't really operate as it does. We've got so many people that are early in their career in that way that really we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. But because they're the right culture, the right team, and they listen, going for that way. I'm not the easiest person at points to get hold of going for that way because I'm a busy guy. But they listen, they take it on, they try. And I've got the rule of 3. You can ask the same question 3 times, and I'll be quite happy to do it. After the 3rd time, I might get a bit annoyed with it going that way.
Did people give you that when you was younger? Did you have that opportunity to ask 3 times?
I was lucky that again people always knew that I wanted to. There's points that I didn't necessarily have the right being young going for that way, but I was always the first person to put my hand up and wanted to try and do something. And points that wasn't easy.
The individual that said to you, you was the worst apprentice that's
he's ever had. And he had quite a few. He got through quite a few. I know some really bad ones, so that really gets it sad. Yeah.
Have you ever gone back to him and brought him in here? Or he might not be alive now, I don't know.
No, he is. I think he still works there. Going for that way.
Would you ever go back and say, hi, remember me?
I probably would do if I went back in there. I'd done some work back in there a few years ago when I worked with Cavendish going for that way, and there was lots of positivity over that way.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of times, as I mentioned, a few of my old colleagues are still there who I still talk to. So it almost goes back in that reverse situation. But even when I was there, I shouldn't have achieved what I'd done as far as he's concerned over being the worst apprentice.
Yeah.
But he was right.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't any good for that way, and so it actually was the right sort of situation.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful he'd done it.
Yeah. So where we are today, tell us about the future of this organisation, the future of you, and what you're doing here. There's some amazing things you've done already, and even the team know there's a future regarding what's next. We've been talking about the future developments here as such. So the team are on board. They're on the journey.
Yeah, they don't have to be.
Yeah.
You know, so 2 weeks ago, I basically stopped them working for an hour or so on a Friday when we're trying to evaluate what light levels, how much we need. So they're very much used to my consideration or thinking as it sits to try and work out how can we do a bit more. And after that, we've got the lights reprogrammed and we sit a little bit lower on our lux level behind what it was. We're always looking at our CO2 levels to work out what we've got to do. We've got to probably look at put like an MVHR system in to make sure we've got the right air quality. We don't want to throw away the heat, that sort of stuff. It's an ongoing conversation we have to make sure it's better. And every time I get introduced you to new technology, where before I'd always think about where else could I put it. My first thought now is, can I put it in here?
Yeah.
Can I put it in? Can I show people so I can bring people up and go, yeah or no, that it does what it says on the tin?
Yeah. And then have confidence. I do the same, you know, speaking to people. If I know I can put it into my house and use that, it's ideal, isn't it? Because then I can say this definitely works. I've used it in my house.
Yep.
These are the savings I've achieved, or the performance in the house.
Yeah, or the data.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what the key thing is. Without having the right
important
data.
thing is we cannot do anything without that right data.
Yeah.
That's point one. And you going into these buildings, new building, you need to know where that data is. If it isn't there, you know the journey's going to be longer. You know the first part of it is going to be installing or getting the best from the existing metering.
Yeah, but and that's where we have got legislation, heat network regulations, MID, Part L. It's almost going back to someone and going, you know, you should have this.
Yeah, go back to basics.
Yeah, that's what you should have.
Yeah.
And once we've got that then, and actually a lot of this process you're doing, it's an expensive process, we can streamline that. We can actually, not to save you energy, but we can save you money in terms of not needing to pay the old-fashioned methodology of an Excel spreadsheet and manual meter reads, and it's taken 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
We can get bills out by the 2nd or 3rd of the month.
So Phil, thank you very much for today, but there's one thing I'd like, if you can share back with our audience today. Is there anything you can give back to people listening to this interview, but as a takeaway?
Keep trying, keep listening, keep learning. And I think one of the key things that I feel has probably made me a better person is giving back.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm the CIBSE HVAC chair, I'm the CIBSE Patrons Committee, I'm on the Intelligent Building Committee. People ask me, can you do a talk, can you go for that way? I like to try and go for that way to actually make sure.
Something to do with the scouts earlier, you showed me.
Yeah.
Again, you're giving back.
Yeah, so
I'm
a trustee chair going for that way. And I've just been asked to actually get involved with my boys' scout group again, to actually be a sct leader when I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, it just.
Where are you going to find the time? You're going to make the time because you think it's important.
I would like to give more than what I could do.
Yeah.
I think that's the key bit, and I do, for the right group, I do what I can go for that way. You know, where I drop my son off already, to then stay there for the hour and a half is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But I'm always so glad, I enjoyed it so much when I grew up. Is almost actually trying to make sure that's my relaxation time as well, is doing the giving back piece as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Phil, thank you very much. It is awesome. The transition I've seen from day one to here.
Still a bit
well done to your dad, because I remember last time I see him, he was under the floorboards pushing pipes up.
Yeah,
I think we were sitting there and all of a sudden the pipe come up.
Probably.
By our feet.
Yeah. He pulls some stuff around. He's not bad at 74.
No, he's your apprentice, isn't he?
He is,
74-year-old apprentice.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you very much. It's been awesome. From 2015, I've enjoyed our journey. You know, we've come in and out of that side of it. You say you don't ring anyone up to find out anything. I sort of find I ring you more to say, Phil, what should I be doing about this? But, you know, you're a great source of information, and you never say, and I always get hold of you quite easy on the phone, but you're bang, 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 give me the answer, thanks very much, boom, and then we're on to the next problem, which is fantastic.
What else do you need?
Yeah, I don't need no one else.
Correct.
Just call Phil.
Yeah, don't tell your members that way. I don't need any of them. That's not good for business, is
No,
it?
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If I want certain information. Phil, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. You and your family, stay safe in these times.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to my guest for joining me today on Energy Speaks Back. I'm very proud and humbled to have the opportunity to interview energy experts from around the world, and I hope you found today's episodes of value. Don't forget to listen to the previous episodes because they are full of insights to help you make a real impact on energy efficiency. And remember, tiny changes that we make today can bring us profound savings in the future. Together, we can drive change and make a difference. That leaves me with one more thing to say. Please, you and your family, be safe in these times.